On this episode of Deleted WrestleZone, we're going to talk about the Wednesday Night War featuring AEW Dynamite and WWE NXT featuring Fyter Fest versus the Great American Bash. So, let's get started with another episode of Deleted WrestleZone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Hey everyone, this is J-Rod here. Welcome to Deleted WrestleZone. All things pro wrestling such as AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact, NWA, many promotions, matches, individual wrestlers, and championships. So as you all know, right now we are currently passing the second week of the face-off between AEW's Dynamite's Fyter Fest versus WWE's NXT, the Great American Bash. Now, last week we saw the results. NXT won the viewership. However, it was AEW Dynamite's Fyter Fest that won the ratings. Now, there's a lot of talk about this many times over, but we'll get to that in a bit. So let's start with exactly who won the viewership and the ratings. Today's winners of the viewership is WWE's NXT. They actually got 759,000 views compared to what last week's what they had was 792,000 views. So they went down 4%. However, AEW had a similar predicament. Their viewership for this week was in fact 715,000 views compared to last week 748,000 views. So they also went down 4%. So both shows went down. But the ratings did not change whatsoever. AEW won the ratings. They got a 0.27 rating in the demo. As for NXT, they got a 0.20. Now, some of you ask, why is that important? Why is it important? Why the ratings are important? The viewership matters. That may be true. But these are views in the demographic. Basically, I don't understand it myself that much, but I tend to understanding a little bit. If you want to know that, you can ask the guys from Squared Circle Cycle Babble. I'm going to try to send you a link of these guys. One of their previous episodes, they talk about the ratings. One of the guys named Michael Vellante, he has worked on TV before. He kind of explains this more, but people saying it shouldn't matter. Now, you probably would ask me, what would WWE need to do to get the ratings up? Well, I'll explain that to you guys at my final thoughts before we get there. But for now, let's just start with AEW's Dynamite's Fyter Fest Week 2. Alright, so we all started now with AEW Dynamite's Fyter Fest. This is the Week 2. So the first match of the night was for the AEW World Tag Team titles, Hangman Page and Kenny Omega versus Private Party along with the Matt Hardy. My bad, keep forgetting. This was a match that was a continuation from a week ago. Private Party won against a match against Santana Ortiz, while Kenny and Hangman beat the Best Friends to retain the titles. This was an okay match, I'm not going to lie. It was pretty interesting. There were some spots that kind of try to play out as the Hardys. As you know, Private Party has Hangman Matt Hardy as a coach or advisor or someone that they look up to, So basically, he played that part. It was a good match. I'm not going to lie with it. If I have to rate this match, I give it somewhere between an 8, That's the way I see it. I enjoyed it. I loved it. Frankly, there has to be a winner. So the winner is still Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. So there'll be more talk. I'll give you guys my final thoughts about this match, about maybe the what's gonna change afterwards. The next match was Joey Janela versus Lance Archer, along with Jake Roberts. But as soon as that happened, apparently Lance Archer brought Sonny Kiss, dragged him on his shoulders, and tosses him right to him. Sonny Kiss was supposed to be at his corner, but he was nowhere to be found. Of course, Lance Archer. It was a pretty good story on this one because Joey has always been trying to be that guy. Like, he's not afraid. He doesn't care what Lance Archer had to say. Lance Archer's motto: "Everybody dies." That type of story. But Joey Janela did a lot of how do I say, great storytelling on this one. Like how he wasn't afraid what is gonna happen. He's always been that guy that is willing to fight no matter what, and that is one of those characters we sometimes have to, how do I say, pay attention. And because if you've known Joey Janela's history, he's been as a hardcore type of wrestler, but now we're not seeing that. He's more trying to go with the traditional way, which is nothing bad. But he wants to prove he's more than what people are saying. But of course, as always, the winner for this one turned out to Lance Archer. If I rate this one, I give it about maybe a 9 or so. I mean, the story was good. Much of the match was like, okay, it was like, you know, simple, but the story was good. I like it. Then we see a little video of Darby Allin. He actually jumped off from some sort of cherry pick, or those things that they lift up. He does a coffee drop right on top of a foam pit. I don't know how high was that, but dang, it was very high. I just had to amaze. Now the next thing we see, here comes Brian Cage along with Taz. Now Taz was making something very interesting. I don't know exactly what was this about, but some people think this was a very interesting story. Now, if you guys know Taz's history about his role in WCW, ECW, and the invasion in WWE, he had this belt called the FTW Championship. It's a championship that never. It's kind of like similar to what we're seeing with Moose, where Moose goes out in his way saying that he is the real world champion, but even though everybody says you're not the champion, that title doesn't mean nothing. In the way, it's kind of like the reverse. Like on this one, like they're making this title mean something, but more interesting. Where Taz was willing to have anybody face the title, so he gave it to Brian Cage. But he hasn't forgotten that he will face Jon Moxley at Fight for the Fallen next week. So there's that. Now, the next thing we have is the 8-man tag team. Now, if I have to rate this match, I'd say I give it a straight up 10 and above. Unbelievable. It's the Butcher and the Blade and the Lucha Brothers versus FTR and the Young Bucks. This was a story that was like, oh my god. We don't know what to expect. We do know that the Butcher and the Blade and the storylines, they didn't appreciate FTR what they did weeks ago when they first debuted, where they got attacked by FTR when they were beating up on the Young Bucks. So basically, it was like, okay, the Butcher and Blade are sick and tired of hearing what great tag team these guys are, both FTR and the Young Bucks. Like, they felt these guys need to go, and they teamed up with the one team that always faced back and forth with the Young Bucks, and that is the Lucha Bros. But I have to say, great teamwork on both sides. I was amazed how this one went down. I loved it. It was chaotic, and I have to give Rick Knox credit how he actually handled this one. Like, sometimes with tag teams, you have 10 seconds to get out of the ring to let your partner go. And it was great. I loved it. So the winners on this one was, how do I say, the Butcher, the Blade, and the Lucha Brothers. But this war between these guys are not over yet. So this is just the beginning. Then we see Big Swole arriving. Now, if you all recall, Britt Baker started to rant on one of her matches weeks ago because she lost the match against Nyla Rose. Now, Britt Baker always goes out saying she's a role model. One week she actually kidnapped her, tossed her in a dumpster. Then later she tossed trash on her. Next thing you know, she was being told that she's suspended for all this and that. Um, you know, but of course, Big Swole was upset, saying, "Why didn't you guys fax me this 3 hours ago instead of driving?" So it was so good how it turned out. But this wasn't the end of it. Next match we have is the return of Nyla Rose. We haven't seen her for quite some time. Ever since she lost the title to Hikaru Shida at Double or Nothing, she decided to put herself in a handicap match versus Kenzie Page and Kaylin King. This one was kind of weird. Like, both of these women were scared of her. We're like, yes, we all know what Nyla Rose can do. She is so dominant. I mean, I love Nyla Rose domination. She impresses me how she's like saying, I break women up, like break them in half. That's who she is. Of course, Hikaru Shida is still afraid of her, but at least she knows she can handle it. Penelope Ford praises her because she's dominant. But as you know, this one to me was a squash match, so it goes to Nyla Rose. But post match of this, she had a major announcement. She talks about how Cody has a coach, which is Arn Anderson. Shawn Spears has Tully Blanchard, everybody. So she said that she has found herself a coach who is going to ensure her to win back the AEW Women's World Title. So it's still unclear who is this person is. My initial assumption, it has to be a female coach, someone who understands. She said that her coach is a former champion. I can go either way who has been, but I'm not. It's a long list, But she did state that coach is coming soon. I'm excited. Next match we had is the six-man tag, which was a very unorthodox build-up. The Dark Order, the Exalted One, Mr. Brody Lee, Stu Grayson teaming up with Colt Cabana versus SCU. This has been a very interesting story. As you know, before the match started, Colt Cabana had some bruises on his ribs. No one knows who attacked him. So basically, all this. But the story is, Mr. Brody Lee set up this match a week ago. Reason behind that is because if you recall, Evil Uno and the rest of the Dark Order, prior before the Exalted One first appeared, they made these mind games to SU thinking that Christopher Daniels is the Exalted One. That was a lie, and then Daniel started going to that whole story. There is no Exalted One. That's just a big load of crap. And as we all know, it wasn't. But Colt Cabana was kind of conflicted with this. As you all know, prior, a while back, he did teamed up with SU versus the Dark Order with Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, Reynolds, and Silver. And that was like one of those stories. And now it's still don't know what is going on. We still don't know what Colt Cabana's position is with Mr. Brody Lee. Is he a member or is he just affiliated? We don't know. And it's becoming an interesting story to that. Now, if I have to rate this one, I'll give it probably a 7.5. So now, but the winners is Colt Cabana, who picked up the victory. Thank to Mr. Brody Lee and Stu Grayson. So that's kind of interesting. Now, the next thing we see is Big Swole shows up, getting into Rebel and the guard's face, and Britt Baker. She thinks this whole suspension is a load of crap. So what she does, she tosses it right in front of Rebel and whapa, hits her in the head, right in the nose, and basically she got her again. It's so funny. I just enjoyed it. So later, someone says, "Someone call a doctor," and Jim Ross, "She is a doctor." "Yeah, but she's a dentist." Great story. Now let's get to the main event. It's freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy versus Le Champion Chris Jericho. This was a very interesting match. Now, I know some of you are saying this, like, Orange Cassidy, he's not good. Now, if you're guys who've been familiarized with Orange Cassidy, you know what he's capable of. You know how good he is. He's a unique individual. I had people that say he may be not a traditional wrestler type. He's a unique individual, how he created his character. Can I say that? Yes. But it was a good match, great moments, very fast paced by Orange Cassidy. But don't forget, Jericho always has his henchmen with him. I'm talking about Proud and Powerful's and Inner Circle members Santana and Ortiz, and they were right there, and they threw in some juice, orange juice, right in his face. And of course, here comes the best friends taking on Santana and Ortiz. But frankly, Cassidy was about to do the Superman punch, but Jericho saw that a mile away, and he hit him with the Judas effect. So he became the victor on this one in particular. It was a good match. I'm not gonna lie. I gave it a 8.5 on this one, but I'll explain to you guys more on the final thoughts on this one. So I think that's it right now. What I got for AEW's Dynamite slash Fyter Fest. So let's jump in right now with NXT's The Great American Bash. All right, so right now we're at NXT's The Great American Bash Week 2. It starts out with the street fight between Candice LeRae and Mia Yim. Now, the story with this one is kind of interesting. As you know, Candice LeRae has been ranting on Mia Yim, saying that she has been given opportunities despite the fact that she's been on a losing streak. And of course, Candice LeRae, Mia Yim had enough with her. She's been back and forth with her, and then this particular match turned into a street fight after what happened last week when both of them were involved in that fatal four-way to become number one contender for the NXT Women's Championship against Io Shirai. It was a brutal match, like very hardcore stuff. Kendo sticks, chairs, trash cans, you name it. But it was brutal. There is a moment where you see Mia Yim bring the brass knuckles, but fortunately, Candice got it and knocked her out. And of course, she did the swinging neck breaker on top of the stack of chairs. That is so hardcore. I mean, it was crazy. I just can't believe how that went down, but wow. So, yeah. As soon as the post match was over, you see Johnny Gargano coming out to take his wife, Candice, back, knowing that she won, but she's all bruised up from this. And this is, I don't know if they're still going to continue on with this with Mia Yim because of the story, the way the Garganos are going. Like they want to rule the NXT under their image, reinvent it under their way instead of what people are saying. Now, the next match we had Bronson Reed versus Tony Nese. Now, this was not involved on TV. Tony Nese was, in fact, facing against Leo Ruff. Leon Ruff was badly beaten by Tony Nese, disrespecting him. Bronson had enough of him, how he was treating him in the ring, trying to act like he's Mr. All That. So Bronson asked permission to general manager William Regal that he wants a piece of Tony Nese. This showed a lot of sportsmanship. I think with Bronson, I think he's becoming that character who's like, yes, I'm big, but I will show respect to you guys no matter what. He beat Leon Ruff a couple weeks ago, and he showed him respect. And he looks at Tony Nese, you're being disrespectful. I'm not going to allow you to disrespect anybody else. It was a great match, and it showed Bronson Reed. I do see him down the line as a star, and it was a great match. So the next thing we see is, here's a little interesting story. Robert Stone and Aaliyah were looking for the next person to sign to the Robert Stone brand. Now, they failed with Rhea Ripley, so they turned into Shotzi Blackheart. Basically, Shotzi, she's not interested, but of course, Robert Stone got his butt whipped by Killian Dane. But the fun part was Shotzi Blackheart with her little tank running over into Robert Stone's leg. I don't know what was that, but that was hilarious. I loved it. I just don't know what to make of it, but I'm glad I got to see it. Oh man. Now the next thing we see is the next match. We had Isaiah Swerve Scott versus Johnny Gargano. This match was set up thanks to a week ago. As you recall, Candice LeRae was not happy with the fact she lost in the match in the Fatal 4-Way, but later she sees Mia Yim gets in her face. Johnny Gargano tried to intervene, tried to make sure that Candice beats up Mia, but Isaiah Swerve Scott actually got involved, tried to break it up, but Gargano didn't appreciate. This was set up to a match. Um, I was kind of voting for Swerve on this one because it would have been a lot uh, interesting to see that he taked on the Johnny, how we call him, Johnny Suck or something like that. But it's great how it turned out. Johnny picked up the victory on this one. He thinks he's like the hero in the story, but in reality, he's the villain in the story, playing a hero. So that's the pretty much story what's going on in NXT. Then we see a little video package between Io Shirai and Tegan Knox. Their stories are similar. The fact is, Io's from Japan, Tegan's from Wales. Their dreams was to become champions in WWE, and that's what they're trying to do. But Io, on the other hand, she has talked about how she doesn't need friends, and Tegan feels that same predicament. First, it was Dakota Kai, then Candice LeRae. So she's saying she doesn't need any friends, and Tegan, on the other hand, she's been like the comeback story in this. But she said once she takes on Io Shirai, if she beats her for the title, that won't be just a comeback story. It'll be the beginning of a journey for her, and it's pretty good. So that match will take place next week. Next match is a six-man tag where we got, of course, the Legado del Fantasma versus Breezango and Drake Maverick. This match was already been set a week ago when Drake Maverick still has his feud with Hijo del Fantasma. There was some great six-man tag team on this one, but it wasn't like the hopefully I get it. Drake is more hell-bent on getting his hands on Hijo Fantasma, but it wasn't enough, even though he put a lot of effort to it. He also played coach for both Breezango, when they were being down by either Raul Mendoza or Joaquin Wilde. And of course, Santos has now made the official statement that he will, like he said before, he will not be touched, that he is untouchable. And he lived up to that. Don't know it, I don't know how long this rivalry between Drake Maverick and Hijo del Fantasma is going to take, or should I say Santos Escobar. But if I rate this one, I say I give it maybe, a 7? Then we see an interview with the Garganos. They're happy that they both won their matches, but the real question is what's next to them. We do know they intend to become champions at the same time. Johnny Gargano getting the NXT title. Candice LeRae, the NXT women's title. So it's still unclear how that's going to be played. But we'll just wait and see. Then we see Damian Priest sending a message to Cameron Grimes. Now, as you all know, Cameron Grimes, he's a loudmouth, so he tells him that he will be in a match against him next week. Cameron Grimes has been avoiding him, saying that he's done with him. He is moving up the ladder, that he wants a piece. Whoever wins, the winner take all match. But Damian Priest, he's not going to let him walk away, so he talked to William Regal, and he gave him the match. So this time, Priest is 100%, and he will get his hands on him. Next match we see is Santana Garrett versus the debut of Mercedes Martinez. She is a force to be reckoned, with Mercedes Martinez. She's very highly recommended in the independent scenes, but she's proven she's dominant. I do see her as one of the competitors who could come get her hands on the NXT Women's Championship, but it'll be a matter of time before she gets it. And she picked up the victory, and she just put the NXT Women's division on notice. I'm sure Io Shirai is keeping an eye on her, but we'll see from there. Then we go to the main event. Champion versus champion. Winner take all. And we got the North American champion, Keith Lee, versus the NXT champion, Adam Cole. And this one was unbelievable. I enjoyed it. I was like, wow. It showed a lot of determination from Keith Lee. Like, he dedicated this match to his coach, Tim Brooks, who recently passed away, and he was determined to win it for him. And, he even dedicated this to his late grandmother, who introduced him to wrestling, and he impresses me a lot. Even Adam Cole has thrown every trick in the book to win the match, and it was showed what kind of determination it is. If you guys want to know, Keith Lee won this match, despite the fact that the match was leaked a week ago, thanks to the guy, that member from In the Shore. Sure, and that kind of screwed things up. Now, you probably asked me this, why is that a problem? I'll explain to you guys that on the final thoughts, and that's going to come up now. All right, my final thoughts on this particular Wednesday Night War. Who do I feel had the momentum for both of these shows? Now, to be honest with you, for me, I feel there's an even match on this one. I'm not sure. It feels it. But the match from both that got to me, I have to say, the ones that from each show, the match of the night for me, for AEW, is the 8-man tag, and for NXT, the main event. That's always been the case. But some of you probably would ask me, okay, what about the ratings? How can NXT? Well, that kind of became a discussion a while ago. Apparently, there was sources that are saying that this just came out when we all know about Tessa Blanchard, that she has been released from Impact because she has failed to cooperate what they're asking ever since the whole thing with the pandemic started. They send out feelers to try to get in contact with her. Now, this is what they're saying. That was noted. I don't know, remember who. I can't remember if it was Pro Wrestling Sheet or the Wrestling Observer about this. If they sign Tessa Blanchard, there is a chance they want to put her on NXT. Reason behind that, they believe that if they put her on NXT, that could boost up the ratings. Now, WWE are well aware they may have been winning the viewership, but it's the ratings that are not doing so good for them. So, for all you guys saying, who cares about the ratings? Well, WWE cares, because now they're paying attention. Okay, they beat them in the viewership, but the ratings, not enough. That's how the game is. The viewership is now on WWE's court, but the ratings, AEW's court. So that's the whole predicament. Now, both shows were good. I'm not going to lie. So to me, I feel like it's 50-50. I don't know about you guys. So that is my predicament for this. I hope you guys did enjoy this. I will talk more about this on the podcast. Compare both weeks and see what happens. So if you guys haven't seen that, you can go find me either on Spotify, Apple's Podcast, Google Podcast, anywhere else. So I will try to get more on this. But next week, don't forget, there's be more. I'll break that out on the news updates right now. Welcome to the news updates. So here's what's happening. If you guys have been aware, AEW are doing another show for Dynamite that's already been from last year's pay-per-view called Fight for the Fallen. Match has already been set. Now, we were well aware about the AEW World Title being on the line between Jon Moxley and Brian Cage. But three matches have now been announced for this one. We have the Lucha Brothers versus FTR. The Elite versus Jurassic Express, and of course the open challenge for the TNT Championship. Cody Rhodes will be facing Sonny Kiss. Now, so far as I know, there is no word yet about WWE trying to counter program. We do know they did this already with the Great American Bash to counter program Fyter Fest. No word yet if WWE are gonna do that. They would have already been announced it on the recent NXT show with the Great American Bash, but nothing. We don't know if that's the case. But hopefully there'll be some answers before we get there, or is this gonna be just a straight up NXT show? Now, the next thing we know, in recent weeks, we have been noticing something very, very unusual. This one was coming from Pro Wrestling Sheet. Now, if you recall, Cody Rhodes was talking about something. He's saying that he wasn't the first call, or the second, or the third, but he was. Yeah, you guessed it. You know what I'm talking to. The Four Horsemen. It's been revealed recently about Cody may be involved in a newly revived version of the Four Horsemen. But he wasn't the only one that people have noticed. Apparently, FTR has been wearing gear that says the number 4. It's indication that Cody may be forming a brand new Four Horsemen deal. It appears that he may no longer be part of the Elite. It's still unclear what happened. He wasn't part of the Stadium Stampede on Double or Nothing. But it appears that he may be stepping aside from that. So, the real question is, who will be the 4th member? Now, for me, there is only 2 speculations. One is Shawn Spears. A, he has a member of the Four Horsemen, much like Cody does. We're talking about Tully Blanchard. If you all know the history between Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, they were tag team partners. So it would be perfect sense. Now, for me, there could be one other person in mind. For me, that person I can think, and it's going to be more of the wild card for me, that is Hangman Page. Why? He did not like what happened with Kenny when he tossed the beer. We all know he likes drinking beer. He's like the new version of Stone Cold, but not wild, ravage, rattlesnake type. But the latest news came around with this one is Ric Flair says that he's willing to endorse AEW for reviving the Four Horsemen. Now, if this is truly going to happen, this is going to be great. Now, we do know there was no mention or talk of bringing back the Four Horsemen in WWE before then. We have seen them in NWA and WCW, but no WWE or in TNA. But AEW are all about being a supportive of the classics. That's always been their greatness for them, knowing they appreciate the past. So if that happens, I'll be happy, and I know for a fact Flair will get something out of it, because you forget, he is the leader of the Four Horsemen. Now, who do I think is going to be the leader? The only person I can think of is going to be Cody. But that's all we got for now. So if you guys like what we talk about, reviewing both AEW and NXT, Fyter Fest versus the Great American Bash, my final thoughts on this, and of course the news update. So leave a comment down below and I'll get back to you guys. So hope you guys can catch me on the podcast. It's DWZ Podcast with J-Rod. You can find me on Spotify, Apple's Podcast, Google Podcast, Breaker, Overcast, Public Radios. I'll try to name them all as possible on the corner. So that is it for now. I must bid all of you adieu. So goodbye. Mwah. And have a nice day.